Welcome to Days of Roar, a Detroit Tigers podcast brought to you by the Detroit Free Press. My name is Mark Gorash. I am here with Detroit Free Press beat writer Evan Petzold. After a long holiday weekend, the Detroit Tigers had lots of good things, lots of bad things. I want to get into it. So how was your weekend, Evan Petzold?
Yeah, the weekend was good. Obviously, a lot of baseball all week, all the time. That's kind of how it goes this time of year. As far as the Tigers weekend goes, let's talk a little bit more about that because, man, oh man, I was nervous coming out of Kansas City. I had that flight home from KC and sit on that flight. I was like, oh my gosh, let's go back and remember the first 3 years of AJ Hinch. The month of April was just terrible. And then, obviously they had been better moving forward. This year, month of April was really good, but May has been a complete disaster. Coming home from Kansas City, I was all worried. And then they lose the first game of the series against the Toronto Blue Jays on Thursday. They got absolutely beat down. And then they won 3 in a row to have a great holiday weekend. And that's how you get the 3-4 week. I was really nervous. 0-3 in Kansas City at Kauffman Stadium. That wasn't very good. And then 3-1 against the Blue Jays back home at Comerica Park in Detroit, rocking the nice new uniforms, the City Connects. They got the job done. Tigers are now sitting at 26-27. That's fourth place in the American League Central and 9.5 games behind the Cleveland Guardians in first place, who finally lost on Monday after putting together a 9-game winning streak. So the standings right now, Cleveland Guardians at 36-18, Kansas City Royals at 34-21, Minnesota Twins at 29-24, Detroit Tigers at 26-27, and Chicago White Sox at 15-40. Yes, the Tigers do have a lot of work, but I feel a lot better about them coming out of the weekend than I did earlier in the week.
Well, personally, I don't feel a lot better about them. I just think they beat Toronto 3 games, and let's be really blunt about it. Toronto, after watching them for 4 days, is a massively underachieving, borderline terrible team with a bunch of good players who's playing terrible. So I want you to share with the Days of Roar listeners what my note was about the KC series. So when we do a little show sheet, we write ourselves notes like everybody does. But how did I explain what happened in Kansas City on the show sheet?
I'll let you explain that, Mark, but I take my own separate little note. Hang on, I take my own little separate notes, and I said 3 bad losses, outscored by 17 runs, lunch money taken, knockout punch delivered, absolutely mollywopped, whatever you want to call it. That's what happened to the Detroit Tigers. I'll let you explain it in your own way, though. But That's how I described it on my personal note sheet.
Mark Gorash put on the show sheet for Days of Roar, Evan Petzold and Mark Gorash, KC merciless ass beating. That's how that's how I termed it. And I don't think I was severe enough in explaining what went on in KC. It was, I think last pod we said this series in KC was going to tell us a lot about the Detroit Tigers, and I think I'll stand by that idea. It told us a lot about the Detroit Tigers. So merciless ass beating, and I hope the Tigers were embarrassed, concerned, and they should have been. All right, let's talk a little bit about Toronto. Got beat Thursday night and somehow played a good game Friday, played pretty well Saturday, and then Sunday, a game that both made you want to jump off the roof of Comerica Park and feel like you landed with a parachute. So let's talk for a second about it. Back and forth, 5-0 lead. Casey Mize, another outing where he really was using magic tricks like a Vegas magician just to get through 14 outs, and somehow the bullpen couldn't stop giving up runs every single inning they appeared, and magically, after a 3-run homer on an 0-2 pitch to Dalton Varsho, Matt Vierling, Tiger savior, future All-Star, saved the day with a 3-run homer and a pitch that I'm still wondering how he hit out of the park. But, how were you feeling up there in the press box on Sunday as the game went back and forth? And was heading into volcanic matter.
Well, Mark, it was just a ridiculous game. And first off, for Casey Mize, you mentioned him being, a Vegas magician. That implies you have to have tricks. And he doesn't really have a whole lot of tricks right now because the secondary stuff isn't good. The fastball is getting worse. But yeah, look, like that Sunday game, 3 hours and 19 minutes, 25 runs, 31 hits, 7 home runs, 2 homers by Matt Vierling. It was incredible. It was incredible. And the Tigers really did need to cap off that series with a big win, regardless of how they got there. Right? I mean, you had that bad 9-1 loss in Thursday's series opener. Then they wore the City Connect uniforms for Friday's game, as they will do for every Friday home game this season. And they snapped a 5-game losing streak with a 6-2 win. And then it was a 2-1 win on Saturday. And then the crazy 14-11 win on Sunday. All 3 of those wins in the City Connects. They'll be back on Tuesday against the Pittsburgh Pirates. It was an incredible game. It was crazy, 100%. Mark, I got a question for you, though. Do you believe in the City Connect superstition? I know you're a baseball guy, so do you believe in the City Connect superstition, or do you think it's kind of a BS thing?
I believe if they believe. And I want the Tigers PR department to know my City Connect package. I've been tracking it, and I see that it left Comerica Park and is now 11 feet into the parking lot, and it's moving at about a foot per day. So I imagine my box with my City Connect jersey in it should get to me sometime after Thanksgiving. So I just
that was Chad Crunk asking for your address, and I passed it along, and so we'll see if it ends up showing up or not. Maybe it'll be an early Christmas gift for you. I just wanted to let them know I was tracking it. But yeah, I mean, look, if they believe, I believe. That's my answer. It's kind of like a Santa Claus. And if Matt Vierling believes, you believe, right? If Matt Vierling believes, you believe.
Listen, Matt Vierling, I'm not saying I owe him an apology, but keep it up. Keep it up, young man. Keep it up. I don't think you're going to keep it up, but keep it up. We're going to get into that when we do the big 2. But we're going to talk a little Matt Vierling. Matty Vierling, big home run day yesterday. But yeah, I believe in the City Connects. All right, let's jump into the big 2. For question number 1 of the big 2, is Matt Vierling good, or is Matt Vierling pretend good? Evan Petzold, who wrote his usual unbelievably high-quality feature that is in the newspaper, in the Detroit Free Press sports section for Tuesday, did a pretty thorough examination of Matt Vierling, what a great human being he is, and how he seems to have tweaked his load and improved the prospects of being a good hitter. Mark Gorash, not a big believer. I think that's pretty clear, and I've enunciated my thoughts, but let's talk about it a little bit because you did a lot of work on this, and I think it's time we had a discussion. Is Matt Vierling good, or is Matt Vierling pretend good?
Yeah, so you can head to freep.com and you can check out the story. It basically dives into who Matt Vierling is as a team-first player, the way that he's kind of bounced around different positions at all levels. Going back to high school and college, I talked to his high school coach, Mason Horn. I also talked to his college coach, Mick Aoki, and they had a lot of great things to say about him. I had long conversations with both those guys, so if Matt Vierling keeps doing things, I'm sure their names will pop up more often, in freep.com. But what I want to focus on is the way that Matt Vierling has been performing at the plate in particular. We know that he can move around defensively, playing third base, playing all 3 outfield positions. He's able to do that, and that's a huge benefit to the Tigers. But the problem is that for Matt Vierling's entire career, people have talked about he hits the ball hard, but he's got to get the ball in the air more often to the pull side. And if he's able to do that, he has the power potential to be able to get to 20 home runs per season. That's why the Tigers traded for him. And so far, they haven't been able to optimize him. They have not been able to get that out of him. Okay, the Philadelphia Phillies couldn't do it, and now the Tigers haven't been able to do it. But recently, we're seeing a little bit of a change. So baseline stats, like, again, this guy has a 117 OPS. His production on offense is 17% above league average. He doesn't draw a ton of walks, but he puts the ball in play, rarely chases, and he also limits strikeouts. Like I said, he hits the ball hard in the 89th percentile in the big leagues this season for his average exit velocity. So those are really good things. Matt Vierling has made a change recently where he's been trying to perfect a new movement with his hands. Going back to the end of last season, there was a hand waggle, a little bit of a load to get ready early, to try to get himself on time for pitches out front. Because too often, Matt Vierling would hit the ball to the opposite field. On the ground, to the opposite field, he'd take a slap single the other way. He's trying to get the hands moving early, getting them out front to the ball. That way he's able to do damage against inside pitches and drive them over the left field wall. And that's how he hit the 2 home runs on Sunday, was inside pitches. One was way inside. The other one from Jordan Romano in the 9th inning was a down and in slider. And he's able to truck it over the left field wall. And that's what Matt Vierling has to do if he wants to get into his power. Now, I talked to him back in spring training, and this has kind of been an ongoing dialogue that we've had. And it's kind of been finding the right time to really write about it. But he talked to me about working on the load of the swing, both studying Miguel Cabrera's mechanics and then also talking to Miguel Cabrera about getting ready early, getting the hands going, getting firing quick, right? And that was a big piece of it, was getting these new movements, feeling comfortable with them. He's also stayed in touch with Tigers hitting coach Michael Berdar. They were in touch all offseason. Obviously, they're still working together now. And he felt comfortable with the new hand movements for the first time September 7th, 2023 against Carlos Rodon. Okay? Last September on the 7th. Since then, his pull rate has increased from 31% to 40%, and his fly ball rate has increased from 30% to 43%. So he's seen a massive jump both in the amounts that he can pull the ball and also the amount that he's hitting the ball in the air. As a result, his .815 OPS since September 7th of last season ranks 29th among 134 qualified position players. So he ranks 29th among 134 players going back to September 7th. So when you ask me, is Matt Vierling legit or is he not? That's a really long-winded way of saying maybe he is, or maybe he's becoming legit. Because when you look at the numbers and you look at what he's been able to do since last September, I mean, this isn't just a week-long sample size anymore. The OPS is pretty damn good. He's not going to be an everyday player. At least he might not be. He hasn't asked for that. He hasn't asked for a permanent position. He's always going to bounce around. He's going to come off the bench. But, I don't know. We've talked about Matt Vierling a lot as being the last guy on this roster. And I don't know if that's really the case. And if it is, that's a pretty good last guy on the roster. Again, .815 OPS since September 7th of last season, when he started to feel an actual adjustment, when he made a real change. It's not just happenstance. He worked for this. I think there's something to be said, Mark, and I really need to get your thoughts, because I know that you've been critical of Matt Vierling, really since the trade, and I understand why. I'm just curious what you think about the data there.
I think the data shows that he's cognizant of his shortcomings, and he's massively putting forth effort to try and change the type of hitter he is. He's increased his pull rate a ton. He's diminished a pretty unsustainable ground ball rate that he had last year from the high 40s to the low 30s this year. All good things. Until the other day, not a lot of power. He still only has 1 home run this year off left-handed pitching in 59 plate appearances. His walk rate is diminished from 8.2 into the high 4s. Not a good thing. And I think, the single largest aspect of me being critical about Matt Vierling is he just doesn't drive in runs. I mean, he is driving in some runs this year, far better than he did last year. But at the same time, he is 8 for 40 after 2 hits Sunday with runners in scoring position. That's 8 for 40. That's quite a few at bats with runners in scoring position, and he's never really been an RBI guy. And 8 for 40 doesn't necessarily identify him as an RBI guy. Is he hitting the ball harder? Heck yeah. His EV is up over 92, miles an hour this year. Bottom line is, it still seems like he hits the ball the opposite way and on the ground an awful lot in one day. I think what's the mantra of Days of Roar? Don't tell me what you can do for one day. Tell me what you can do every day. When it comes to every day, I'm just not a huge Matty Vierling believer. Am I willing to be convinced otherwise? Yeah. Production always is something that'll change my mind. I just don't see it. I do see the change in the load. We've talked about it since spring. I appreciated the effort. But until Sunday, which skewed his numbers a lot, by the way, just wasn't a lot for me to engender belief in. So let's see where we go from here. But, if Matt Vierling's playing every day and hitting 4th, 5th for you, your team's not real good. That's all I got to say about it.
But Mark, he doesn't have to be playing every day. He could be coming off the bench until maybe he proves that he can play every day. But what he's doing right now, the production, 278 batting average, 774 OPS, 5 home runs. I understand that that's skewed by the 2 home runs that he had on Sunday, as you mentioned, but 23 RBIs. Like, I don't know, dude's been somewhat productive. Okay, look, my point is that there are many, many, many more hitters in this lineup that have been less productive than Matt Vierling this season, and that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm seeing the positive results with the data, the behind-the-scenes data with, again, the pull rate, the fly ball rate. Those things are trending in the right direction. I think it's at least just something to monitor. And again, I know we both appreciate the effort, and I know the Tigers do too.
Yeah, I think there's improvement. At the same time, he's in the 7th percentile in Major League Baseball in walk rate, okay, at 4.3%. Defensively, when they play him at third, I mean, he's not very good. He isn't a tragedy like their first baseman, but not real good, okay? And those at-bats are going to go away because if the Tigers don't somehow figure out how to get a real third baseman soon, it's hard to take them very seriously as a baseball team. And the third baseman will not be Matt Vierling. And I'm not real sure where he's going to play in the outfield. You have a plethora of outfielders. I mean, look, if Parker Meadows is actually a Major League Baseball player, and that's still to be determined, but we are seeing some signs at Toledo that he's going to get another shot here sooner than later. Now I have Wenzel Perez, Parker Meadows, Kerry Bonds Carpenter, Riley Green, and Mark on the outfield. So I don't know how many at-bats Matt Vierling's getting in the outfield, but I'm sure he'll get a few. But
Mark Canha is on his way out this year, but after this season. But you're right, Mark. Like the time is now for Matt Vierling for sure. Like 100%. The time is now for him to do something and to prove something. Otherwise, it's going to be just like it was when he was in, Philadelphia, where he was kind of pushed out in the way in which he was, not a great player on a really great team, and he had a lot of potential. The Tigers thought they could optimize him. I'm sure somebody else would take a flyer on Matt Vierling, but the point is, the time is now for him to stick with the Tigers because, they're going to keep trying to move forward, and that's where you see, guys like Zach McKinstry, guys like Matt Vierling, like, you got to prove it now because there are going to be more players coming up. Like Jace Young is going to come up at some point, right? Like there are going to be other options for this team. Can Matt Vierling be a great last guy on the roster, next season? Sure, probably. But like if he really wants to make an impact, the time is now to prove that he can do that.
Like I said, don't show me what you can do one day. Show me what you can do every day. His overall numbers, not bad. The real impact of the numbers, not great. Not a great guy with runners on base. And look, he has 161 plate appearances for the season. Prior to Sunday, he had 3 homers and 156 plate appearances. He had 18 RBIs. It's not a great profile. So when you look at the overall aspect of it, is he improving? Yes. Did one day skew the numbers and make him look a lot more palatable? Heck yes. So, I mean, if the Tigers want to be good, there's only 2 choices. Either Matt Vierling needs to get a lot better and earn more playing time, or they need to find better players because, what I've seen so far, it's not really an impact player. It's a guy that's kind of taken up space that a bad team plays a lot. He's better than terrible and not really good enough to make an impact. That's kind of my feeling about it. So, all right, let's move on to question number 2, the big 2. Is the Tigers bullpen broken, or is it overworked, or is it just having a bad month? And I'm really curious about your opinion about this topic because I think it takes some nuance. You're in there every day and you know how they feel and what they're sharing with you kind of off the record. So give me your thoughts about this.
How about option D? Maybe just not as good as we actually thought they ever were. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm not sure if it's broken, overworked, having a bad month. I think it's more of just, maybe not as good as we initially thought. Like, let's go back and look at some stuff really quick. The Tigers bullpen in the first 15 games of the season, they ranked first in baseball with a 1.86 ERA, but at the same time, 12th in baseball with a 3.98 FIP, indicating the bullpen wasn't actually the best bullpen in baseball and would soon decline, which is exactly what happened because in the most recent 38 games of the season, they're 29th in MLB with a 5.14 ERA, but 20th in MLB with a 4.07 FIP, which in this case indicates the bullpen isn't actually this bad, but also isn't that good. So we're seeing this weird mix. The Tigers came out of the gates really hot with the bullpen. There were a lot of one-run leads. They were slamming the door. They looked really good. Like, the ERA number looked really good, but the FIP did not look that good. FIP is fielding independent pitching. It's similar to ERA, but it focuses on only the events a pitcher has the most control over: home runs, strikeouts, walks, hit by pitches. FIP removes results on balls hit into the field of play because pitchers don't have as much control over a ball in play as they do a walk or a strikeout or a home run. So what we were seeing early on was ERA is really good. FIP is kind of more middle of the pack, which led you to believe that the Tigers were maybe more of a middle of the pack type bullpen. And then you look at most recently, last 38 games. Oh, that's almost a stretch of 40 games. It's quite a sample size here. 29th in MLB with the ERA, but 20th in MLB with the FIP. Again, leading you to believe that this team is more of a middle of the pack bullpen. So sure, recently, maybe a little bit broken, but generally speaking, I don't know if the Tigers ever were really a top 3 bullpen in baseball. They probably always were somewhere in that, again, like I just had mentioned, somewhere in that 12 to 20 range, that middle of the pack bullpen range. So look, a lot of one-run games early in the season could be the reason for the struggles. So many high leverage innings early on, but it's been nearly 40 games with a below average bullpen, lower than a top 15 bullpen, whether you want to look at an ERA or FIP. Like, it's been 40 games now. And during this bad stretch, Jason Foley has pitched in 15 games. He has a 6 ERA, 5.25 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3 walks per 9 innings. He's not getting as many ground balls. He's leaving too many pitches up in the zone, not throwing as hard anymore. It's been a rough 12 innings for the Tigers closer. He needs velocity. He needs command of the sinker before we can even think about the slider and the changeup missing bats. The Tigers also optioned Alex Lang to AAA Toledo. There was the incident with A.J. Hinch on the mound when Alex Lang had gave up the double to Bobby Witt Jr. in Kansas City. He asked for a new ball. He then whips the ball at the near the Tigers dugout into the netting. He threw it really hard. It was pretty disrespectful. Frankly, it was really disrespectful. A.J. Hinch bounces out on the mound, gives him an earful, chews him out. The next day, he gets optioned to Toledo. A.J. says that the option had nothing to do with the incident on the mound. Whatever. You think what you want about that. But now the Tigers don't have a true strikeout pitcher aside from Alex Fido. So that impacts the way the bullpen's being managed too, because, so many times Alex Lang had come in with, runners on the corners, 1 out. You need a strikeout in this situation. And they go to Alex Lang because he can get you the swing and miss. Now, aside from Alex Fido, who is pitching more of the long relief, they don't really have a true strikeout artist. Nobody misses bats. That gives me a reason to be concerned. You want to go back and look at this bad 38-game stretch that I'm talking about. Joey Wentz misses the most bats at 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. And then Alex Lang at 8.8, he's gone. Andrew Chafin at 7.9. Alex Fido at 7.7. Tyler Holton at 6.5. Will Vest at 5.4. Jason Foley at 5.3 in terms of strikeouts per 9 innings. So these guys aren't missing bats, and they don't have relievers that are made to miss bats, which means there's going to be a lot of balls in play. That's a concerning factor to me when it comes to this bullpen as a whole. I have a lot of concerns. Again, I think they're a middle of the pack bullpen. I'm sure you feel the same.
Well, it's pretty concerning because one of the magic tricks of A.J. Hinch is how he manages a bullpen and how he creates mismatches or matchup advantages for his bullpen. The month of May, the Detroit Tigers bullpen has an ERA of 5.80. Pretty unsustainable as it applies to winning. When you talk about swing and miss, I think we talked a little bit about this. Their swing and miss within the count is actually not terrible. Their swing and miss to finish off hitters is atrocious. They can't strike anybody out, and they don't really have a bullpen constructed with guys that strike out hitters. Whose fault is this? Well, there's one guy whose job it was to sign relievers and to try to add arms that create strikeouts or improve the team. And I think I've been pretty clear about my level of disappointment in what they've done. I mean, they do have a profile. Scott Harris does have a profile of type of pitchers that he likes. And to be really frighteningly honest about it, I mean, yeah, Shelby Miller's coming back here within the next 10 days, but when you start looking at what's in Toledo, to recall besides Alex Lang. And at this point in time, if Alex Lang is going to save you, I mean, he could save you. Alex Lang was the AL reliever of the month in May of 2023. I think I tweeted some things about what's transpired since then. He is almost a 20% walk rate, which is an unsustainable aspect to Alex Lang and the entire reason he's at Toledo. But the cupboard's pretty bare at Toledo for relievers. If you go take a look, it's a real problem. And these are some of my frustrations with the Detroit Tigers and the Detroit Tigers bullpen. They haven't developed any hard-throwing relievers. They haven't claimed any and fixed them. And for a team that seems to be really, really good at fixing and optimizing starting pitchers, they've done an absolutely atrocious job of doing the same thing with relievers aside from Alex Maeda. So, I'm not sure where the answers are, but when you have a head of baseball operations, that's his job. And there's all kinds of relievers, getting DFA'd, or there's small deals getting made all the time. And the Detroit Tigers want to take advantage of one of the best managers in baseball. They need to give them tools to help them do that. And I'm just profoundly disappointed when you look at what's gone on at the level of depth and the plan B that they had from what plan A was. And I think all of us were on board with plan A. The question is, people that manage companies in business always have a plan B, at least successful ones, because plan A doesn't always work. So my question is, what's plan B and what are you going to do to fix it? And I don't want to hear the words, hey, I just got here. It's going to take me a few years to fix this. And my answer is, well, you've been here almost 2 years and it looks a lot like it did for the 7 years before that. So, tick tock, let's go. What are we doing? You have a great org. The question is, it's like if you have a pretty decent car and you're putting terrible gas in it, you're going to have engine problems. So my question is, what are you doing to fix the gas problem so you don't have engine problems? So what do you think is going to happen to the bullpen now if you get another injury or two?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Like, we've already seen Bo Brisky come up. We've seen Mason Englert, come up as the replacement for Alex Lang. I think once Shelby Miller comes back, Mason Englert, goes down to AAA Toledo again. Bo Brisky stays. Yeah, that's what's kind of disappointing to me is that, I don't know, maybe Trey Wingenter can be an answer, but we've been down that road before. If you want to talk about guys that miss bats, though, 29 strikeouts in 19 2/3 innings in AAA Toledo, the big problem is he's also got 10 walks. Like, the Tigers haven't been able to optimize him in that way, which is really disappointing when you talk about go out and get a guy and then develop him into what you want to be. And I'm not talking about player development where you get him in the org day one and raise him up. I'm talking about bringing a guy in from the outside and helping him get better. Trey Wingenter still struggles to throw strikes, and that gives me reason to be concerned about him, even though strikeouts per 9, it's 13.3. It's off the charts. It would be easily the best in the Tigers the moment that he steps foot into Comerica Park. Even last year when he was with the Tigers, he had 22 strikeouts in 17 innings, and it was 11.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. So this guy can strike out batters. So maybe Trey Wingenter is part of the answer. I'm not so sure about that, though, because it kind of reminds me a lot of Alex Lang. Really, really wild with some really good strikeout stuff. So I don't know if there is an answer, Mark. I think kind of the point that I'm making here and that I've been trying to make from the beginning of question 2 of the big 2 is maybe this is just a middle of the pack type bullpen. Like, maybe this is not an elite bullpen, and that's just going to be how it is, because you're right. Like, there aren't answers. There aren't answers unless you want to move like somebody to the bullpen. If you want to move Kenta Maeda to the bullpen or Matt Manning, but that's a ways down the road. That's not happening now. So there aren't a lot of answers. And the Tigers are kind of stuck with what they're stuck with. Like, again, I think this is just a middle of the pack, somewhere between 12th in baseball to 20th in baseball. That's the type of bullpen you're going to get.
All right. Well, if that's the case, then you're looking at a baseball team that's going to win somewhere between 72 and 78 games. And, that's where we're going, because once you knock the first 5 victories off the season, we're not looking too good here. You're 22 and 28 in the last 50. It's a 440 winning percentage, and that's like a 70 to 72 win team. Not a lot of fun, and maybe it's not such a bad thing for a lot of people that Bally Sports Detroit is no longer broadcast on Comcast and you can't see the games. So, all right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a minute. Okay. Well, we had a few things happen last week. Number one was Kenta Maeda returned from the injured list. Matt Manning was optioned at AAA. We just discussed Alex Lang being banished to Toledo, and he was banished to Toledo. So the question I want to ask you, and we've talked a lot about Matt Manning and how profoundly disappointing he's been. Why did the Tigers keep Matt around for 4 days only to send him down before Friday's game so Kenta Maeda could start? Now, I want to get into this, hopefully not for a long time, but we both have a few opinions about it.
No, it was just really bizarre, Mark. It was like Matt Manning pitches last Sunday against the Arizona Diamondbacks. 2 days later, A.J. Hinch announces Matt Manning as a starter for Friday's game against the Blue Jays. I think the Tigers were planning to start Manning on Friday, activate Maeda to start Saturday, and then push everybody back an extra day. Maeda was already healthy. Like, he wasn't going back to make another start in Toledo. Like, that wasn't happening. So he did the bullpen. He had his plan all mapped out. Like that's how it was going to go, it seemed like. And then suddenly the Tigers decided to pivot. And on Friday, the Tigers option Manning and activate Maeda. So like Hinch's announcement that Manning is going to start Friday, that happens Tuesday. And then by Friday, Manning's option to Toledo. Kenta Maeda is activated from the injured list. Now, had the Tigers started Manning, then Maeda, going Friday, Saturday, it would have pushed Tarek Skubal and Jack Flaherty back to 6 days rest with Monday's off day. So that's why the Tigers ultimately decided to start Maeda instead of Manning and then keep everybody else on like their regular rest aside from Monday's off day. It's a bummer, though, because like as taxed as the bullpen was and is, the Tigers could have had an extra arm in Kansas City if they would have just optioned Matt Manning after Sunday's game against the Diamondbacks. Now, maybe they were wondering, is Kenta Maeda really going to be ready? But at the same time, the reports were that he was fully healthy, had missed bats in Toledo like crazy. The stuff was pretty good in Toledo on his rehab start. And that was kind of the deal, right? And like Reese Olson, I know he got hit by the leg with that comebacker in KC, but the next day he already knew he was going to make his next start. So there was no questions about whether Reese Olson was going to be able to go or not. Like he knew he would be making his next start. It was just a bruise on his leg. He was fine. So I thought that was really interesting. I think looking back on it, like maybe the Tigers regretted the way that went down because they could have had an extra arm in Kansas City. Like that would have been beneficial considering the way that things went down. Had the Tigers not had Matt Manning sit on the bench all series in KC just to bring him back to Detroit and option him to Toledo and activate Kenta Maeda. Like they basically played short in a way, if you will, considering how things turned out. I think it's kind of irrelevant at this point. It was just a little bit interesting how it played out. And then obviously Kenta Maeda, he has his first game on Friday against the Blue Jays. 5 scoreless innings, 4 hits, 0 walks, 1 strikeout. He threw 74 pitches. I'm expecting him to get into the upper 80s in his next start as long as he performs well and is able to get into the 80s, with his performance. Some good sliders early on, but he didn't miss many bats, just a 17.1% whiff rate. Last year, he had a 28.2% whiff rate, so still not missing bats. He benefited from a lot of weak contact, but it was balls in the air. He did a good job of mixing his pitches and locating to get that weak contact. But man, Mark, like just watching him pitch, if Kenta Maeda does not have his optimal location and he leaves pitches over the heart of the plate, he's not missing enough bats. Like even with the secondary stuff or with the fastball, like he will get crushed if he's not locating his pitches. He will get crushed. And so without the whiffs, he needs to be perfect with his location. That's a reason to be concerned, even with him coming back from the viral illness that he had.
Well, all I can say is I think everyone was pretty surprised that Kenta Maeda navigated through 5 innings as well as he did in his first start. The idea of him starting after how he looked prior to getting ill and then getting a rehab start, it wasn't exactly like it engendered a lot of confidence in what was going on. What I will say, as far as the extra arm in Kansas City, yeah, that really didn't matter too much. Wouldn't have mattered if they had another arm in Kansas City. It was just another person, another reliever to get brutalized based on how that 3 days went. So I'm not going to worry too much about that strategically. What I will say is it's not a real good look for Matt Manning that they just decided that he's been so terrible, so unable to execute what they're asking him to do, so frustrating, so unproductive that they just said, yeah, Matt, we've given you multiple chances in 2024 and you just keep disappointing us. So we'd rather start a guy who was so terrible in his last start before he got ill, we prefer starting him over starting you. So you go back to Toledo, and I'm not sure when we're going to bring you back, barring injury, but yeah, we're not too happy with you. So good to see you, and we'll talk to you later. And how disappointing is that's where the career of Matt Manning is 6 years into it, that he was banished to Toledo after giving multiple starts in Detroit in 2024. I did not have that on my dance card. Did you have it on yours?
I thought he was going to make the team coming out at spring training because the stuff was pretty good, coming out of camp. But yeah, it's a 4.88 ERA in 5 starts for the Tigers, 3.79 ERA in 4 games for AAA Toledo. His timeline was always tied to Kenta Maeda's timeline for sure. But you're right, not striking out as many batters in the big leagues compared to the minor leagues. And at both levels, left-handed hitters have killed him. It's a 304 batting average with an 897 OPS at both levels. So his struggles against lefties are really concerning to me. That tells me he needs to get to the best version of his splitter more often, because that's the pitch that will help him against lefties. He also needs to get to 2 strikes faster, which opens the door, obviously, for more strikeouts, because when he gets into better counts, he can use his secondary stuff a lot better. But it's been a train wreck for Matt Manning this year, which is really a bummer. He's gotten opportunities. Again, 5 starts for the Tigers, a 4.88 ERA. He had an opportunity to cement himself as a dude in this rotation. That was the opportunity that he had. I know he had the 3 rainout games where he came up as a 27th man for the doubleheader, and the timing of his starts were shifted around, and none of that was easy. I get that. That's difficult. When you don't know exactly when you're going to start, and all of a sudden you're called up to Detroit, and you have 1 start to make, and then you got to go back down, and you don't know when you're going to return. But he still had those 3 starts, and then he still got, his last 2 starts were as a regular member of the rotation with Maeda on the injured list. So he had back-to-back starts to really make a good impression, and he wasn't able to do it. And that's really frustrating for a guy who you look at, and he has all the athletic ability in the world. He again, uber athletic, uber talented. He has the stuff to get the job done. He's just not able to repeat it. And he doesn't get strikeouts in the big leagues. He just doesn't. He does not miss bats in the big leagues. It's a real concern. It's a real problem. And now he goes back to Toledo, and you're right, Mark. Who knows when we're going to see him again? Maybe never. Maybe never.
I'll be short and sweet about Matt Manning. A couple of years ago, he had one of the most productive fastballs in Major League Baseball based upon how many innings he threw. My suggestion to Matt Manning, Matt, throw more fastballs. Please stop trying to be a breaking ball pitcher. Attack with your fastball. Try to bully hitters with it. They really struggled hitting it. You just can't seem to understand that. I refer to Matt Manning as the Pinocchio of the Detroit Tigers pitching staff. You can read into it what I mean by that, but that's how I feel about it. So, as our buddy Mike Farron says, fastball command is life. Matt Manning, fastball command, fastballs. Go down there, work on that. All right. Colt Keith, really a resurgent Colt Keith. Hit his first dinger of his Major League career. It was a lot of fun. What are you seeing behind the scenes? How mature has he been? And tell me what you think about this resurgence. He's, hitting close to 360 for the month of May, and he's just really finding ways to get on base. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, how about since May 6th? Span of 16 games, sitting 400 with 4 doubles, 1 home run, 8 RBIs, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts, tied with Aaron Judge for the 3rd best batting average in the American League since May 6th. And when considering, the entire offensive performance, the entire body of work, he's been a top 10 hitter in the AL since May 6th. So Colt Keith has been looking really good at the plate. I love to see it. Second inning of Friday's game, full count. He fouls off back-to-back sinkers, then hits a middle changeup off right-hander Alek Manoah for a 400-foot home run to right center field. He had the biggest smile on his face. It was his first homer of his big league career in his 144th game, also in his 155th plate appearance. He's been waiting for a really long time for that home run. He's hit a lot of balls at the warning track, a lot of them deep. He's been pretty unlucky when you look at the unlucky hitters in baseball. He's been right up there at the top when you compare expected stats to, the back of the baseball card stats that we see every day, right? So unlucky, finally gets into one, does it at Comerica Park, which is great to see. Now, I know it's a small sample size when you look at, hitting 400 since May 6th, but it's encouraging because Colt Keith implemented a toe tap for the first time on May 8th. He dished a leg kick, went to the toe tap. That happened, in early May. By May 17th, he has the first 4-hit game of his career. Then he collects back-to-back 3-hit games, May 20th and May 21st. Now he has his first home run. The toe tap has helped him keep his head stationary and find the timing of his swing. What I like about Colt Keith is that he's willing to make noticeable adjustments to get on time for pitches. Like Spencer Torkelson can learn a thing or two. Like take a page out of Colt Keith's book and like make a legit adjustment that people can actually see. Like that's noticeable. That's not just like a small approach change or whatnot. Like let's do something mechanical. Let's make a difference. Torkelson maybe could add a toe tap. That might be helpful to him. Obviously, it works for Colt Keith. Yeah, if Torque could take a page out of Colt's book, that'd be awesome. But it's good to see Colt Keith, even at such a young age, being willing to make adjustments. And he's done that at every stage of his career. I've talked to him going back, years now. And at each level, he struggled early on, and then he's got it going. And he gets it going because he makes an adjustment. Like he made an adjustment in West Michigan. He made an adjustment in Erie. He made a little adjustment in Toledo. Like those are things that he was able to do. Like when he got changed up to death in Toledo last year, he made an adjustment, came back from it, and had a really strong finish. Like that's why the guy hit 306 with 27 homers in the upper levels of the minor leagues last season. And he's making an adjustment now at the big league level, Mark. That's such a good thing to see.
You want to discuss hitting aptitude, the capacity to understand what adjustments might work and then implement them. Colt Keith in April, 163, 221, 175 slash line, 396 OPS. Colt Keith in May, 362, 406, 500, 906 OPS in May. So that's called hitting aptitude. That's called making adjustments and applying adjustments effectively. I think the best is ahead for Colt Keith. He can flat out rake. We haven't even really seen the power unleashed, and he will walk even more than he has. So it's good to see somebody turning it around, unlike supposedly the two primary cornerstone pieces in the Detroit Tiger lineup for 2024, which were Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green. So Spencer Torkelson hit a home run in Sunday's game after an off day on Saturday. Did anything stand out that suggests better results? And let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I found this really interesting. He had the 0 for 19 stretch, and then he has the off day on Saturday, comes into Sunday, hits the double, then he hits the home run. The home run, it was a 91.6 mile an hour fastball located middle up. He pulled it 405 feet to left field. Probably his best swing of the year, on time for a fastball. I get it. It was a low velocity fastball, but it was a fastball. He was on time for it. What I find interesting is that it was off a left-hander, Yusei Kikuchi of the Toronto Blue Jays. And it's interesting because Torkelson now has 4 home runs this season, 2 on breaking balls, 2 on fastballs. The most recent 2 homers were on low velocity fastballs from left-handed pitchers, Jordan Montgomery of the Diamondbacks and Yusei Kikuchi of the Blue Jays. Spencer Torkelson against lefty fastballs, he's hitting 304 with a 696 slugging percentage and a 1.7% whiff rate. So when he swings, when a lefty is throwing a fastball, he almost never misses. Spencer Torkelson against righty fastballs. So when a right-hander throws a fastball, it's a 160 batting average with a 200 slugging percentage and a 23.1% whiff rate. So does that mean he's not on time for right-handed fastballs? It sure seems like it. That's a little something that I'm looking to monitor in the coming weeks, is how he does against fastballs against right-handers compared to left-handers, because the numbers are extremely, extremely different. And when you look at the overall slash lines for his career and the way that he's performed against righties and lefties, it's 219 against righties and 227 against lefties. So sure, a little bit better against lefties, but those fastball numbers, I mean, I know it's just a small sample size from this year, but when you look at the whiff rate, he doesn't miss fastballs against lefties, but he misses a ton of fastballs against righties, and it's a big problem. I'm going to monitor that over the next couple of weeks and see what I come up with. I think it's interesting. Again, just the fact that the most recent 2 home runs were on low velocity fastballs from left-handed pitchers, that's fascinating to me, and maybe telling of some of Torkelson's struggles.
Well, look, Spencer Torkelson's numbers compared to 2023, not vastly different by date, but I will say to you, by swing, massively different. Spencer Torkelson, last time I checked, had 2 hits in 2024 on fastballs that were 95 miles an hour or greater. 2 hits in 2024. He might be up to 3 hits. I might have missed one. I got to go back and check. But as I've said in almost every tweet about Spencer Torkelson for the entire 2024 season. 3 words: late, late, late. And until he stops being late, yeah, he might hit a homer off a 91.6 mile an hour fastball. I still don't understand why they throw any breaking balls actually over the plate to him. I would be attacking with fastballs one after the next, maybe spin something off the plate and come back into the hitting zone with more fastballs that had velocity. Until he proves he can hit it, I'm not a real fan of what Spencer Torkelson's doing. I don't really want to talk about it anymore. All right, let's talk about something that is great, and that is Keury Carpenter and Riley Green are both left-hand hitting outfielders who opposing managers target for pitching changes. What's the difference between them right now, which is pretty simple to know, which is Keury Carpenter is murdering right-handed pitchers anytime they throw the ball over the plate. But, let's discuss it a little bit. People want Keury Carpenter to hit against left-handed pitching. They just want Riley Green to hit against anybody who's pitching, which he has not done in the month of May. It's starting to get frustrating. So let's talk about it for a second.
Yeah, let's look at the last 21 games even. Keury Carpenter hitting .314 with 5 home runs. Riley Green hitting just .167 with 2 home runs. Riley Green early in the season was walking a ton. He was drawing a ton of walks, and now that hasn't been the case. Again, looking at the last 21 games, it's 5 walks, 26 strikeouts. Beforehand, Riley Green was one of the walk leaders in baseball. He was leading baseball for a solid stretch there at the beginning of the season. So Riley Green now is not drawing as many walks. He's striking out, back to career norms. And it's kind of a little bit concerning because the walk rate, kind of like a career norm for him. Strikeout rates, kind of like career norm for him. And he's just not hitting. Keury Carpenter, though, yeah, this guy's absolutely raking. He's been so much fun to watch. And it's not only just this stretch either. Like, he's hitting .285 with 8 homers this season. That's 49 games. It's his 3rd big league season. He ranks 4th among qualified outfielders with a .916 OPS, trailing only Aaron Judge, Kyle Tucker, and Juan Soto. Also, Keury Carpenter with +2 defensive runs saved in right field. We've seen him look a lot better out in the outfield this season compared to the last 2 seasons. So when you're in the same breath as Aaron Judge, Kyle Tucker, and Juan Soto, like when you rank 4th on that list for what you've done in 49 games this season, you get a real hat tip. You get a real hat tip from the Days of Roar crew. And the defensive improvement has been really good to see. Riley Green, on the other hand, yeah, he's not on time. And it's troublesome because he's not on time, but he's also not walking. So when Riley Green isn't on time, he needs to be drawing walks. He needs to be getting on base, doing whatever he can to move the line along and pass the baton to the next guy. Too many strikeouts, too many ground balls. That's not going to do it. He had some good swings, over the weekend at times, but again, kind of fell right back into tough times again, even after a few good swings that, we saw on Friday that I liked. But yeah, he's got to get it going. Riley Green is the straw that makes the stir drink. No wonder the Tigers have been losing a lot in May. Riley Green hasn't been doing anything in May. I think that pretty much speaks for itself.
All right. I got some answers to these questions, but before I give them to you, we're going to take a break. All right, so let's get into it. Here's the deal. First of all, for those of you that are mad that Keury Carpenter is not facing left-handed pitching, I understand your frustration, but here's the deal. He's missing maybe 100 at-bats a season that he could be facing left-handed pitchers. He's never shown a capacity to really perform against them, and it's foolish to get upset about 100 at-bats. So if he's going to be essentially a platoon outfielder that misses 100 at-bats against left-handed pitching, I personally don't care. Jock Peterson has made $75 million being that player. And if Keury Carpenter is Jock Peterson, that's a pretty damn good career. So let's stop even discussing it. Let's embrace the idea that he is an absolute beast against right-handers and only is getting better. And let's move on. Hat tip to how much better he is as a defender. He's more than a playable defender. He's probably got the best throwing arm this side of Parker Meadows in the outfield, and he's more than playable. As far as Riley Green goes, here's what I got to say. The walk rate is plummeted because pitchers are attacking him now. They're willing to throw him strikes. So the idea that he's going to brutalize pitchers have decided they're willing to risk it. So they've come up with pitching patterns. Riley is not able to barrel the baseball well. He's abandoned hitting the ball to the left side of the field, which he used to be so good at. And until he's willing to make the changes and get a little bit more on time and stop hitting the ball on the ground, no matter how many times he tweaks his swing to stop himself from doing it, we're going to keep going through these ups and downs with Riley Green, which is profoundly disappointing to me because I don't think there's anybody on this squad that has more superstar potential. And if Riley Green is going to be a cornerstone player, we're pretty far into it now. It's time to start showing some consistency. Do I think there's a way back? Yeah, there's probably a way back starting tonight. And by the way, Mark Gorash will be in the stands tonight and tomorrow afternoon to see these two pitching matchups. So if you find me, wave to me, say hello, I'll be down there. You might even see a beat writer come down to give his boy a hug from the press box, but I don't require it because he likes it in the press box. So let's get on to the next question. How many Cornerstone franchise players do the Detroit Tigers have on their major league roster right now? Because I think it's a real fair question. How many do you think?
Yeah, so I kind of came up with a little bit of a list, and I went Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, Tarek Skubal, Colt Keith, Reese Olson, Jason Foley, maybe Wenzel Perez, maybe but unlikely Parker Meadows. So that's 6, maybe 8 of the 28 players on the active roster. And you're right, I didn't mention Spencer Torkelson. He has a 0.1 F4 in his MLB career, spanning more than 1,300 plate appearances. That's a really, really, really bad F4. Like, that's terrible. And it's because of inconsistent offense and below average defense. So no, he's not on my list of Cornerstone franchise building players. But I have 6, like I said, Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, Tarek Skubal, Colt Keith, Reese Olson, Jason Foley.
All right. So I will, as I do with prospects, try to answer this in a way that makes sense to me, which is I put things in tiers. So tier 1, Stone Cold Yes, Tarek Skubal. That's it. They got one Stone Cold Yes cornerstone player. That is Tarek Skubal. Tier 2, possible. That would be Riley Green. And that's it. Riley Green would be in tier 2. Tier 3, maybe Reese Olson. He is in tier 3. After that, as far as cornerstone players, after those 3 players, I have none. Everybody else is just some guy with potential. So, Spencer Torkelson, lucky to be a Tiger next year if he doesn't turn it around. Jason Foley, just a good reliever. Hard to, relievers are very hard to be cornerstone players because good one year, bad the next year, good the next year. I put 0 relievers in as cornerstone players. So besides that, they have 3 on the possible list, which says to me, Scott Harris, you got some work to do. So tell me who you think they have in the minor leagues that might fit in somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you can look up and down the list. You go MLB Pipeline, you can look at their, top hitting prospects or whatnot. And we never really know what those guys until they get to the big leagues and actually prove themselves. Like, again, that's why when you mentioned your tier list, Colt Keith was not on your tier list, right? Because Colt Keith still has something to prove. He's a good player, but he has potential. He has to reach the potential. But yeah, like, can Jackson Joe be a tier 1 guy? For sure. Like, can Max Clark be in tier 1 or tier 2? No doubt. Jace Young, same thing. Kevin McGonigal. Yeah. Will all 4 of those guys be tier 1, tier 2? Probably not. Like one of those guys probably won't pan out. That's just the way that things go in baseball, right? Like, you have a lot of top prospects. Not everyone's going to pan out. So I think that even goes down to, guys like Jose Bursuino, right? Like a young, hit first kind of guy who's catcher, first baseman. Like, can he develop into that power? If he can, you look at a pretty good left-handed hitting first baseman / catcher, however they want to use him, right? But like, who knows with a guy like that? He might never make it to the big leagues. So I think with prospects, you don't really know. You like to look at the top of the list and you like to project, but at the same time, it's tough to really say one way or the other. Now, if they all reach their potential, sure, like everybody could be, in a top 3 tier, if you will, if they all reach their potential. But not everybody reaches their potential. And, Again, like the big leagues is really, really tough. Like, is Max Clark going to be able to really hit in the big leagues? Again, there were a lot of Max Clark, Corbin Carroll, comparisons. Look what's going on with Corbin Carroll right now this season. Okay. Like, it's a tough league in the big leagues. So I don't want to say too much about prospects just yet, but obviously those are the big four: Jackson Joe, Max Clark, Jace Young, Kevin McGonigal, guys that you got to be watching all the time.
I think you got to include Braceno in that discussion. And I want to qualify this so people understand what we're using as a criteria. I would say a cornerstone player is a guy that's a 4-WAR player in a season. It's not easy to do. There's not a lot of them. It's probably the top 10% of players in baseball. And that's usually a good dividing line for you. All right. So running a little short on time. Give me a quick update on some minor leaguers that have been hurt that are coming back. And then I want to jump into some really interesting matchups that are coming up this week. Give me the down and dirty and when we can expect to see Jackson Jobe, Braceno, Wilmer Flores, Ryan Kreidler, etc.
Yeah, right-hander Jackson Jobe, left hamstring strain. He threw a bullpen on Saturday, expecting to see him back in action soon. It's going to be a rehab assignment, obviously, and then we'll eventually return to Toledo once he gets fully healthy and built back up. Catcher / first baseman Jose Braceno, he has a right PCL sprain, so that is a right knee injury, the PCL sprain. Timeline for the return is unclear. That happened while running the bases during a May 5th game with Low A Lakeland. He's been one of the best, pure hitters in the low levels of the minor leagues, probably second to Kevin McGonigal, hitting .306 with 2 home runs, 15 walks, 17 strikeouts in 28 games. Whenever he gets back, that is a guy to watch, but tough blow for him with the PCL sprain. We'll see when he gets back. Right-handed reliever Wilmer Flores, he has a right shoulder AC joint sprain. That happened on May 12th. He threw a bullpen on Saturday, so expecting a return soon. He's been bad. 6.04 ERA, 19 walks, 19 strikeouts across 22 1/3 innings in 13 relief appearances with AAA Toledo. He's in the 40-man roster, though, so if he turns it around, maybe he could be an answer for the bullpen. He's a very, very fascinating arm when he's throwing strikes and he's in the zone. Shortstops Ryan Kreidler and Eddie Leonard both began rehab assignments with Low A Lakeland this past week. They should be with AAA Toledo around June 1st. Ryan Kreidler is ahead of Leonard on the pecking order if the Tigers need an infielder. The Tigers love Leonard's exit velocities. He hits the ball is about as hard as anybody in the organization, along with Justice Bigby, but there are legit concerns about Leonard's chase rates and how big league pitchers will dissect his weaknesses. He sounds a lot like Javier Baez, hits the ball hard but chases too many pitches. Now, there's also the fact that Ryan Kreidler has never proven that he can hit in the big leagues, and he's also struggled to stay healthy, but still, Kreidler has more experience and is ahead of Leonard on the list of call-up options. Also, Ryan Kreidler, elite shortstop. Eddie Leonard, not an elite shortstop. Probably not a shortstop in the big leagues at all. Right-handed reliever Freddie Pacheco, that's a name to know, Mark. We've talked about him a lot over the years. He is throwing bullpens twice weekly in his return from Tommy John surgery. When he's healthy, he's going to make his way into AAA Toledo's bullpen, and he could even help the Tigers this season, possibly in high leverage. Another reliever, when you talk about the bullpen, who's coming, who could be there to help out? Well, down the road post All-Star break, it could be Freddie Pacheco. It's a 96-mile-an-hour fastball and an 84-mile-an-hour slider. The fastball had a 27% whiff rate, and the slider had a 55% whiff rate back in 2022 in the minor leagues with the St. Louis Cardinals. The Tigers picked him up off waivers. Fastball maxes out at 99 miles an hour. That's a real arm right there if it comes back throwing strikes. Freddie Pacheco, watch out for him. Watch out for Wilmer Flores. Watch out for Ryan Kreidler. Those are 3 guys that we could see impacting the Tigers this season. And also, watch out for Jackson Jobe later on because he could be somebody that we see down in September.
Freddie Pacheco, by far the most interesting relief arm they have in their system. Let's hope when he comes back he has some command. He would be a very, very helpful piece if he does. I want to give a shout out to one Reese Olson, who has just been nothing short of magnificent this year. But if you go back to last August 28th, he has a 1.78 ERA and close to 90 innings. And holy smokes, that's some great stuff, Evan Petzold.
Yeah, it's incredible. Reese Olson, you get the hat tip from Days of Roar. Without a doubt, everything that you've been doing, man, oh man, is just incredible. I mean, say what you want about the FIP. We talked about fielding independent pitching and what that means. It's a lot lower than that, or it's a lot higher, excuse me. It's a lot higher than that ERA. So maybe a little bit of regression coming. Like, I don't think he's going to have like a 1.8 ERA for the rest of his career, but Reese Olson has been really, really good. He does it both getting strikeouts and also getting weak contact. He does a good job of pitching to any lineup because the stuff is just so nasty. He's a slider first kind of guy, but it's slider, it's changeup. He hides that fastball really well. He's done a good job of throwing the sinker either backdoor or inside to the righties. That's been really impressive to watch too, the way that he's worked the sinker in there, this season and really used it as a leverage going inside to then throw the secondary stuff off of that pitch. Like I said, he's done a good job of hiding the fastball. It's been awesome to watch Reese Olson work. He does a great job dissecting hitters, and it's a 40% whiff rate with the slider, a 46% whiff rate with the changeup. He misses bats, he gets outs, and yeah, he's pretty calm, cool, collected. He acts like a big leaguer, and he performs like a legit big leaguer, an all-star big leaguer, a Cy Young candidate big leaguer based on the numbers that he's putting up right now. Couldn't be more happy for Reese Olson. Major hat tip.
Yeah, major hat tip. Executes his stuff better almost than anybody, almost in the American League right now. I mean, really has command of what he's doing, and got to tip your hat to Reese Olson. The transformation from Double-A a year and a half ago to now is nothing short of amazing. All right, on Tuesday, you got Tarek Skubal against Jared Jones. Just two supercharged up, unbelievable repertoires for pitchers. Jared Jones throws up to 100. Great slider. Tarek Skubal needs no introduction. Wednesday, Jack Flaherty, slider master, strikeout leader versus the unbelievable Paul Skeens. Wednesday afternoon, I will be there for both games. Really excited to see all four of these guys throw in person. I will be behind the plate if you're looking for me. Then they have 4 games in Boston versus a 27-27 Red Sox team that has elite starting pitching and who is really pretty damn good, much better than the record seems to indicate. What's your thoughts about the next week?
Yeah, so Jared Jones, right-hander, throws hard, gets chased, gets whiff, gets strikeouts, limit walks. He's really, really good. He ranks in at least the 90th percentile in all those categories aside from strikeout rate. Fastball is superb, slider is elite, also throws curveball, changeup. He's been doing it for 10 starts with a 3.05 ERA. This stuff is unreal. And then Paul Skeens, another right-hander, he's just getting started, but man, oh man, does he look really good. The number 1 overall pick in the 2023 draft has been outstanding so far. His fastball has averaged 99.4 miles an hour through his 3 starts. That's an average, Mark, 99.4. Throws fastball, splitter, slider, changeup, curveball. Fastball, split, slider to both righties and lefties. He throws the changeup, exclusively to lefties. It's amazing. Like the fastball, split, and slider, they have above 30% whiff rates. He's going to find a way to miss bats. Keeps the ball on the ground when there's contact. He's got a 2.25 ERA in 3 starts. This is another elite arm. And then you look ahead to the series against the Red Sox. Kenta Maeda looks like he's going to go on Thursday. Reese Olson on Friday. Casey Mize on Saturday. Tarek Skubal on Sunday. I feel good about 2 of those pitchers. That's Tarek Skubal and Reese Olson. Tarek Skubal with his 2.25 ERA in 10 starts and Reese Olson with his 1.92 ERA in 10 starts. Yeah, Tarek Skubal ranks 11th in the big leagues in ERA. Reese Olson, he ranks 5th in the big leagues. But I don't feel as good about Casey Mize and Kenta Maeda because those guys, well, they just aren't missing any bats. Casey Mize's fastball is getting worse in both ride and velocity, so he doesn't have anything to challenge hitters with anymore. I think he sacrificed some of the fastball shape in search of consistency with his delivery for his secondary pitches, the splitter and the slider, but he isn't missing bats with the splitter and the slider. So now he basically has 3 below average pitches in the fastball, splitter, and slider instead of one above average pitch in the fastball. That's really concerning for me about Casey Mize, something I'm going to be watching moving forward. We've already talked about Kenta Maeda. When it comes to the Red Sox series, like 2 of those pitchers, not so sure about the other 2. And as far as Boston goes, man, oh man, can those guys pitch? I know it's a 27-27 record, but they've got a really good starting rotation. They could give the Tigers some serious fits in Fenway Park. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, be interested to see how they do in Boston. Tigers normally a pretty good road team unless they're playing the KC Royals. As far as Casey Mize goes, the one encouraging thing about I have to say about Casey is a lot of pitching aptitude, understands how to tweak things. I'll be interested to see what he does to try to improve himself.
He battles.
All right, time for us to get the heck out of here. I'd like to remind everybody to please like, rate, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to Tiger Podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, you name it. You can always find us embedded in every Evan Petzold article at freep.com. I'd like to thank our executive producer, maybe getting close to for the last time, Kirk Crawford, and the Free Press editor, Nicole Avery Nichols. Our producer, the big man, Robin Chan, who maybe we're going to have on next week. We got to talk to Robin for 10 minutes on the podcast. I think we need to do that. I'd like to thank Robin. He saves us every damn week. Love to my grandson, the spectacular Braden Michael Gorash. Shout out to Savannah Petzold. Until next week, peace.